Welcome to Freaky Fives. Today, we're going to be counting down 5 of the strangest, most unusual, and most unheard of crimes in heavy metal. I'm sure most of you have heard of Euronymous and Dead from Mayhem, not to mention what happened with Varg Vikernes and Euronymous later on. But tonight, we'll be talking about 5 more interesting, in my opinion, cases that not a lot of people know about. But without further ado, let's get into the list. Number 5. Kurt Strubing. NME, which stands for No Mental Effort, was a black/thrash metal band that formed in 1983. The members were from the Tacoma, Washington area. The band originally formed as Night Prowler, with Kurt Strubing on guitar and vocals, Scott Tinsley on bass and vocals, Dean Putz on vocals, Kathy Bupane on drums, and T. Barber on guitar. They released 2 demo albums entitled Eat Death in 1983 and Back for Seconds in 1984. Putz and Barber parted ways with the band, and Brian Lapiton joined the group on vocals. Bupane left the group in 1984. Steve Meyer took over on drums. This new group took on the name NME, and Lapiton left the group as well. The band experienced moderate success, releasing albums entitled Unholy Death in 1986, Machine of War in 1985, which was then re-released in 1995, and Vermination in 2002. Lapiton rejoined the band in 2004. Their music has been covered by other bands such as Toxic Holocaust, Nunslaughter, and Bunker 66. Members of the bands Pantera and Metallica have been photographed wearing NME shirts. Strubing was born November 26, 1965. He was adopted by a woman named Darley. By all accounts, she was a loving and supportive mother. The two seemed to get along very well. Strubing didn't get along with his adoptive father, and his parents divorced. In early 1986, friends and family started to notice changes in Strubing. First, he cut his waist-length hair. Then, one night after band practice, while the band was cleaning up their rehearsal space, Strubing drank a bottle of carpet cleaner. He stripped naked and left the rehearsal space, heading home. Strubing later told people that he was trying to clean himself out. He was using drugs more heavily and became delusional and paranoid. He thought people were stealing his things and he was unable to sleep. Strubing assaulted a friend with a baseball bat because he was convinced that the friend was trying to kill him. Eventually, he began to think that everyone around him were robots. He believed himself to be an alien. On April 7, 1986, Strubing stabbed his 53-year-old mother with a pair of scissors and hit her in the head with a hatchet. He called 911 and waited for the police on his front porch, naked. In the police car, he was rambling and speaking nonsense. He was sent to a psychiatric hospital where he told doctors that he had cut his mother open in an effort to prove that she was a robot. He attempted suicide by jumping off his bed and smashing his head onto the concrete floor while at the hospital. Everyone that took part in Strubing's trial could tell that he was mentally ill. He pled guilty to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 12 years in the penitentiary mental health unit. Strubing was released in 1994, having served 8 years. NME broke up due to Strubing's arrest, but reformed when he was released. Strubing got married and had a son in 2000. He began working at a printing company. His life seemed to have gotten back on track. He seemed stable and was working to help local metal bands. NME hired a manager. She and Strubing started a side company called Siren Spawn that helped young metal bands break into the music scene. He used his printing job to create promotional materials for bands and for the charity work and benefit shows that he was doing in the community. On March 9, 2005, 39-year-old Strubing was in his car on the Spokane Street Bridge in Seattle, Washington. That bridge is a swing bridge that, at the time, was open to allow the passage of a tugboat through the waterway. At approximately 1 p.m., Strubing passed several cars sitting on the bridge waiting for it to close. He crashed through the wooden arm that stopped traffic and through a metal gate, and his car plummeted through the opening in the bridge. It fell 50 feet and crashed into the concrete below. Strubing was killed. His friends told reporters that he had seemed fine in the days leading up to the crash. To this day, it's unknown whether Strubing intentionally drove off the bridge or if it was an accident. Number 4. Grzegorz Gergielowicz. Infernum was a black metal band formed in 1992 by Grzegorz Gergielowicz and Tom Balrog in Wrocław, Poland. Gergielowicz, aka Kacharoth, and Anaxiomaris played electric guitar, bass guitar, and sang vocals. Balrog played percussion. In 1993, the band produced a demo called The Dawn Will Never Come. In early 1994, Balrog left the band. Maciej Dabrowski, known as Capricornus, took over percussion for the band. The duo released an album called Tar Nu Fwyn. Infernum recorded When the Light Has Died before the original members of the band called it quits. At the same time, Gergielowicz was also in a band called Graveland, which was formed in 1991 by Rob Darkin. Dabrowski joined the band and he and Gergielowicz planned to live together. Gergielowicz wanted to paint the walls of their shared house black and to sleep in a coffin. At this time, the Polish Secret Service, or UOP, became interested in those involved in the black metal scene. They were concerned about the extreme ideas and crimes associated with the genre and its performers. Darkin told others that the Secret Service targeted Gergielowicz, who had a history of mental illness, namely schizophrenia. Darkin believed that the UOP were aware of this and used it to acquire information from him. As the pressure on Gergielowicz increased and his mental state deteriorated, he began fighting with Dabrowski. In 1997, he was admitted to a mental health facility. Gergielowicz told Dabrowski and Darkin that he was kidnapped after a recording session and beaten by the UOP. They only released him after he promised to force the breakup of Graveland. He told his bandmates that if they continued recording, they would all be killed. The two men ignored Gergielowicz and continued recording. Angry that he was being disregarded, Gergielowicz denounced Graveland and distanced himself from Darkin and Dabrowski. Gergielowicz fell deeper and deeper into his mental illness and began telling wild stories, alienating himself from his other friends. During this time, Darkin said that Gergielowicz planned a trip to Norway with plans to kill a former friend, Fenris from Darkthrone, who had borrowed a CD from him and did not return it. According to Darkin, Gergielowicz packed his suitcase with weapons and purchased a one-way ticket to Sweden. The lack of a return ticket alarmed customs officers. After finding his bag of weapons, Gergielowicz was arrested and held for 24 hours before being returned to Poland. In 2002, Gergielowicz reformed Infernum with 4 new members. The newly reformed group began recording the album The Curse. On May 7, 2004, after his long struggle with mental illness, Gergielowicz killed himself by jumping from the 10th story of an apartment building. Infernum was forced to complete the album without him, and it was released in 2006. Balrog returned to the band in 2009, and they're still making music today. Number 3. Matthias Schurman. Carpe Noctem was a black metal band that formed in Leer, Germany in 1997. Matthias Schurman, aka Carathorn, played bass and sang vocals. Matthias Dussmann, known as Troll, played guitar. Ivan Schmies sang vocals and played guitar. The band released a demo called Days of Dark Winter in 1998, and a full-length album called Nachtgedacht in 2003. Schurman was an industrial mechanic. He had a crush on Bianca Brust, a medical assistant. He asked her out several times, but she turned him down. The two remained friends. In early February of 2008, Schurman began acting strangely. He sold most of his furniture and belongings. On February 20th, 32-year-old Schurman invited 27-year-old Brust to his home for dinner. When she arrived, he strangled her to death and decapitated her. He then took a series of about 20 photos of her body. In some of the images, Brust looked like she was sleeping. In one, Schurman put sunglasses on her severed head and placed it on the desk. In most of the rest, he posed the headless body in various sexual positions. She was wearing nothing but knee-high black boots. At approximately 1 a.m., Schurman posted the photos to a metal music forum called Life of Debauchery under the username I Hate You. He titled the thread, Dead Whore. He had been a member of the forum for months, but this was his first post. His only comment was a smiley emoticon under each image. Immediately, users began commenting that the images must have been fake. They attacked Schurman and called him names. Many believed the images to have been props from a horror film. When a moderator for the forum contacted him about the images, he took them down. He put Brust's head in a backpack and lit her body on fire while it was still in his apartment. Schurman took the backpack to his car and drove off. A neighbor noticed him looking suspicious, and then noticed that his apartment was on fire, and called police. After the fire was put out, police found Brust's headless body. Before they had time to investigate, they received word that Schurman had run head-on into a box truck. The impact killed him. Responding officers found Brust's head in the backpack on the passenger seat. The family was shown the images taken by Schurman to identify the body. Number 2. Samong Trisatha. Surrender of Divinity was a black metal band from Bangkok, Thailand, that formed in 1996. Samong Trisatha, aka Aveji, was the vocalist and bass guitar player. Sun Yalux Sengtham played drums, and Wathayakorn Adapayak played guitar. The band released the albums Oriental Hell Rhythmics in 2001 and Manifest Blasphemy, The Abortion of the Immaculate Conception in 2006. The band was decidedly anti-Christian. Trisatha was the founder of a group called the Siamese Satanic Bike Clubhouse, and he also owned Demonized Productions. Sangtham owned a company called Sick Chainsaws Productions. It produces grindcore, thrash metal, and death metal music. Adapayak owns a production company called In Coffin Productions. On January 8, 2014, 26-year-old Parkarn Harnfan Busakorn showed up at the home of 36-year-old Trisatha and his wife, Jaruvan Surapul. Harn van Busakorn was there to pick up some screen-printed t-shirts. Trisatha invited him in and offered him a drink. Surapul went to put the couple's child to bed. When she returned approximately 1 hour later, she found her husband dead on the floor. He had been stabbed over 30 times. Harn van Busakorn was nowhere to be found. He left behind the 1-foot-long knife he used in the murder and a cell phone. Harn van Busakorn was a law student at Ramkhamhaeng University and played the stock market to help support his family. Shortly after the murder, a Facebook user who called himself Maleficent Meditation posted a picture of what appeared to be Trisatha dead in his home. The photo was accompanied by a statement from the killer. The nuances of the message don't easily translate to English, but the poster claimed to have been suicidal for years. Before he killed himself, he wanted to murder men that tarnish Satanism. He went on to say he had more respect for Christians than those who pretend to be Satanist. He claimed that Trisatha was a pretender. The post ended with the words, "Hail Satan." The poster wanted people to know that he was not a fan of the band and that he hoped people would not associate Trisatha's death with famous murders like that of John Lennon. In the message, the poster claimed that he brought the knife to Trisatha's home with the intent to kill him. He also claimed that he continued stabbing Trisatha as the victim begged him to stop and tried to get away. After he killed Trisatha, the poster said he returned to his hotel room where he meditated on his crime. He said that he did not regret his actions and had a passion for cold blood. Police believed that both the picture and the confession were authentic. They also believed that the post originated from Harn van Busakorn. In less than a week, the post had almost 2,000 shares. Sales of the band's merchandise on eBay increased dramatically in the days after the message was posted. Police raided the home of Harn van Busakorn's stepfather, a lawyer, but he told police that he hadn't seen his son since before the murder. Harn van Busakorn hid out and lived in his car for nearly a month, but finally returned to the home of his stepfather, who demanded that he turn himself in. Harn van Busakorn denied that he went to Trisatha's home with the intent to kill him. He also said that he was not the author of the Maleficent Meditation post. Harn van Busakorn instead claimed that he and Trisatha were discussing Satanism, and the conversation got heated. Harn van Busakorn called Trisatha a false Satanist, so Trisatha pulled a knife on him. Harn van Busakorn claimed that he was able to take the knife and turn it on Trisatha in self-defense. Harn van Busakorn was convicted and sentenced to 20 years for the murder. After Trisatha's death, his wife took over as the leader of the Siamese Satanic Bikers. Number 1. Seth Putnam and Josh Martin. Anal Cunt, also known as AXCX or AC, was a grindcore band from Newton, Massachusetts. Seth Putnam started the band in 1988. He and Mike Mahan played guitar. Tim Morse played drums. You can tell by the name of the band alone that they were a group that liked to push boundaries. Due to censorship, the band was forced to put AC on the cover of some of their albums. But just to push the envelope, the letters were shaped like an anus and vagina. Putnam admitted that the name of the band was just him trying to be offensive. His original idea was to create more noise than music. The original tracks the group recorded had no rhythm, beat, lyrics, or titles. AC started out playing in basements and living rooms of family and friends of the band members before playing live on the radio at Brandeis University. The band was approached by several record companies, but they turned them down. The band went on its first European tour, but broke up shortly after. The band reformed in 1991 with Fred Ordonez replacing Mayhem. The band went on a second European tour. It was a disaster. Shortly before the tour began, Morse quit the band. They attempted to hire a new drummer whilst on the road. Most of the shows ended with Putnam and Ordonez, a former boxer, getting drunk and punching audience members. In 1992, John Kozik joined the band on guitar and Putnam became the vocalist. They signed with a record company, Relapse Records, and began recording the album Everyone Should Be Killed in 1993. Ordonez left the band, returned, and was kicked out during this time. He was replaced by Paul Kranek, who quit the band shortly after. Putnam was arrested in 1993 for hitting a woman in the face with a microphone. Interestingly enough, this is actually captured on one of their live records. By 1995, Putnam was the only remaining original member of the band. He worked on some side projects while he tried to find new bandmates. One of these projects was singing backup vocals for Pantera. In 1996, Josh Martin joined the band on guitar, and Nate Lineham became the drummer. This new incarnation of Anal Cunt released the albums I Like It When You Die and It Just Gets Worse. They were starting to make waves with their record label. The label insisted that some of the song titles and lyrics on It Just Gets Worse be changed, and eventually, they dropped the band from their label entirely. In 2003, Martin was arrested and sent to jail. He was replaced by Kozik. Linehan quit, and Gillis took his place. In 2004, Putnam fell into a coma after mixing alcohol, crack, heroin, and Ambien. He was in the coma for almost a month. Doctors were ready to remove him from life support, but his mother refused. When he woke up, he was paralyzed and suffered severe nerve damage. He underwent months of physical therapy to learn how to walk and eat again. During this time, he was put on antidepressants. In an interview after his coma, Putnam said that he could still outdrink and outdrug the average person, and that he was still doing heroin, cocaine, and drinking. As soon as he was able to, he began playing with the band. His first show after the coma, he sat in a chair for the entire show. This didn't stop the band from performing their song You're in a Coma from the album I Like It When You Die. Putnam continued with the band despite his failing health. During a performance in Norway, he passed out and lay unconscious on stage for the entire show. Kozik and Gillis had had enough. They quit. Martin, no longer in jail, and Linehan rejoined Putnam and released the album Defenders of the Hate in 2007. In 2008, Martin returned to jail, and Linehan quit again. For the 20th anniversary of the band, Putnam, Morse, and Mahan recorded an album and toured. Putnam and Morse stayed on after the reunion tour, and Martin rejoined the band when he was released from jail. The band completed their final tour on April 30th, 2011. On June 11th, 43-year-old Putnam died of a heart attack, and the band was officially over, for good. On May 28, 2018, 45-year-old Martin was goofing around on an escalator at the Providence Place Mall in Rhode Island. He was riding on the handrail when he fell off and landed headfirst on a table in the food court. He died from his injuries. He was the third person to fall from this escalator. He was the second to die as a result of this fall. Shortly before his death, Martin caused a commotion while Gene Simmons was accepting the key to the city of Providence, Rhode Island. Simmons left the stage and attempted to find Martin in the crowd. Video footage of this incident can be found on YouTube.